The smell of sulfur and smoke hung thick in the canyon as Warren Whitfield realized he had one candle left, and dawn was still 6 hours away. He sat on a flat boulder near the mouth of what locals called Devil's Throat, a winding canyon passage in the Utah Territory just west of Kelton, watching his campfire die to embers. It was October 1883, and the night had turned cold enough to see his breath. Warren had been tracking a pair of horse thieves for 3 days, following their trail through increasingly treacherous terrain, until he lost them in the maze of sandstone walls that carved through this desolate stretch of land. Now his supplies were nearly exhausted, and he faced a long ride back to town in the morning. He was reaching for his bedroll when he heard it, a voice, faint and desperate, calling out from somewhere deep in the canyon. "Help, please, someone help me." Warren stood immediately, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip. The voice was female, and it was coming from inside the canyon where darkness pooled like black water between the high stone walls. He grabbed his rifle and the candle from his saddlebag, then hesitated. If he went in there now, he would use up his last light source. But that voice carried real fear, and he had never been the kind of man to ignore someone in trouble. "I'm coming," he shouted into the darkness. "Keep talking so I can find you." Warren lit the candle, cupping his hand around the flame as he moved into the canyon. The walls rose 50 feet on either side, blocking out the starlight and creating a corridor of absolute darkness beyond the small circle of illumination from his candle. The woman's voice guided him, growing stronger as he navigated around fallen rocks and through narrow passages where he had to turn sideways to fit through. "I'm here," the voice called. "I can see your light." He rounded a bend and found her sitting against the canyon wall, her dress torn and dusty, her face streaked with dirt and tears. She was young, maybe 22 or 23, with dark hair that had fallen loose from its pins and eyes that reflected his candle flame like mirrors. She tried to stand when she saw him but collapsed back down with a sharp cry of pain. "My ankle," she gasped. "I think it's broken." Warren knelt beside her, setting the candle on a flat rock nearby. "What are you doing out here alone?" "I'm not alone. I wasn't supposed to be alone." Her voice trembled. "I was with a wagon train heading to California. We stopped to make camp and I went to gather firewood. I wandered too far and got lost. When I tried to find my way back, I fell down an embankment into this canyon. That was yesterday afternoon. They must have moved on without me." Warren examined her ankle as gently as he could. It was swollen badly, possibly broken as she feared, definitely sprained at minimum. "They would not have left you behind on purpose. They are probably searching for you right now, but not in here. This canyon does not go anywhere near the main trail." "I kept trying to walk," she said, "but it got dark so fast and I couldn't see anything. I've been sitting here for hours, terrified that I'd die in the darkness and no one would ever find me." He met her eyes and saw genuine fear there, but also something else. Relief. Hope. "What's your name?" Hannah Turner." "I'm Warren Whitfield. I'm going to get you out of here, Miss Turner, but we have a problem. This is my last candle and it is already burned down by a third. We need to move now before it goes out." Hannah looked at the small flame, then back at Warren. "You came in here knowing it was your last light. You needed help." Something shifted in her expression, a softness that had not been there before. "Thank you." Warren helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as she balanced on her good leg. "Put your arm around my shoulders. We are going to move slow and steady. I will carry the candle in one hand and hold you with the other." They began the difficult journey back through the canyon. Warren had to transfer the candle between hands several times as they navigated obstacles, and each time his heart raced as the flame guttered and nearly went out. Hannah bit her lip against the pain, but did not complain, even when they had to squeeze through a particularly narrow section, and her injured ankle scraped against the rock. "Tell me about yourself," Warren said, partly to distract her from the pain and partly because her silence made him acutely aware of how close she was pressed against him. "Where are you from originally?" "Missouri," Hannah replied, her breath coming in short gasps. "Independence." "My parents died last year, both of them within 3 months of each other. Fever. I had no other family there, and a friend wrote to me about opportunities in California, teaching positions in the new schools. I sold everything and joined the wagon train in August." "You are a teacher." "I was." "I am. I hope to be again." She stumbled, and Warren caught her more firmly, the candle wobbling dangerously. "What about you? Are you a lawman?" "Sometimes. When the sheriff in Kelton needs extra help. Mostly I work my own land, raise horses, take odd jobs. The tracking work pays well enough." They emerged from the narrowest part of the canyon, and Warren could see the faint glow of his dying campfire ahead. The candle was now just a stub, and hot wax was dripping onto his fingers. He ignored the burn and kept moving. "Almost there," he encouraged. "Just a little further." The candle flickered once, twice, and then went out completely just as they stepped into the open area where Warren had made camp. The timing was so perfect that Hannah laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that held both relief and residual fear. "That was too close," she said. Warren helped her sit near the remains of his fire and quickly built it back up, feeding it dry wood until flames leaped high again. In the firelight, he could see Hannah more clearly. She was beautiful, he realized, though she looked exhausted and frightened. Her dress had once been a practical traveling outfit in dark blue, but now it was torn at the hem and covered in dust and stains. Her hands were scratched and bleeding in places. "Let me look at that ankle properly," he said, kneeling beside her again. She allowed him to carefully remove her boot, wincing as he did so. The ankle was badly swollen but did not appear to be broken, which was good news. Warren retrieved his canteen and a clean cloth from his pack, first giving her water to drink, and then using the damp cloth to clean the cuts on her hands and face. "You are very kind," Hannah said softly as he worked. "Most men would not have come into that canyon." "Most men are fools," Warren replied. "Besides, I could not have lived with myself if I had not tried to help." He wrapped her ankle tightly with strips of cloth torn from his spare shirt, creating a makeshift bandage that would provide some support. Then he draped his coat around her shoulders because she was shivering, and moved to prepare a simple meal from his remaining supplies. Some dried beef, hardtack, and coffee. Not much, but better than nothing. As they ate, Hannah told him more about her journey. The wagon train had been led by a man named Callahan, who seemed competent but stern. There were 15 families in total, all heading to California with dreams of new starts. She had made friends with several of the women and had even begun teaching the children their lessons during the long days of travel. "They must be frantic," Hannah said. "Especially Sarah Brennan. She's been like a mother to me since we left Independence." "We will get you back to them," Warren promised. "My horse can carry both of us, though it will be slow going with your injury. At first light, we will head to Kelton. It is the closest town, about 15 miles east. If your wagon train is searching for you, they will likely send someone there to ask if anyone has seen you." Hannah looked uncertain. 15 miles on horseback, with my ankle like this. "I will not lie to you, it will not be comfortable, but it is our best option. You need a proper doctor and you need to reconnect with your people." She nodded, accepting the logic even if she did not like it. "Will you stay with me until dawn? I know that is asking a lot." "I am not going anywhere, Miss Turner. Get some rest. I will keep watch and tend the fire." Hannah settled back against Warren's saddle, which he had positioned as a backrest for her. She pulled his coat tighter around her shoulders and closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into the rhythm of sleep. Warren sat across the fire from her, watching the play of light and shadow across her face, and wondered at the strange turn his evening had taken. He had given his last candle to a woman lost in darkness, and somehow that simple act felt more significant than any of the supposedly important things he had done in his 31 years. There was something about Hannah Turner that pulled at him, a quality he could not quite name. Courage, maybe. Or grace under pressure. Or perhaps it was just the way she had looked at him when she realized he had risked his own safety to help her. Warren added more wood to the fire and settled in for a long night of watchfulness. The canyon was quiet except for the occasional cry of a night bird and the soft whisper of wind through the rocks. He thought about the choices that had led him to this moment. The decision to track the horse thieves one more day instead of turning back. The choice to enter the canyon when he heard Hannah's voice. The sacrifice of his last candle. Each decision had seemed small at the time, but together they had created this strange and intimate situation, two strangers sharing warmth and safety in the wilderness. As the night wore on, Hannah stirred occasionally, sometimes crying out in her sleep. Nightmares, probably, about being trapped in the darkness. Each time Warren spoke softly to her, reassuring words that seemed to calm her even though she did not fully wake. He found himself wanting to protect her, to ensure that nothing else bad happened to her. It was an unfamiliar feeling, this fierce protectiveness towards someone he had just met. Dawn came slowly, the sky lightening gradually from black to deep blue to soft pink. Warren made more coffee and woke Hannah gently. She opened her eyes and looked confused for a moment before memory returned. She sat up quickly, then groaned at the movement. "How is the ankle?" Warren asked. "Hurts less than last night, but still not good." Hannah accepted the cup of coffee he offered and sipped it gratefully. "I must look terrible." "You look like someone who survived a dangerous situation. That is not terrible." She smiled at him over the rim of her cup, and Warren felt something shift in his chest. "You are very good at saying the right thing, Mr. Whitfield." "Warren, please." "Warren," she repeated. "And you should call me Hannah. I think we are past formalities after you saved my life." He helped her to her feet and got his horse ready. The gelding, a sturdy bay named Rusty, stood patiently as Warren prepared to mount with Hannah. He climbed into the saddle first, then reached down and carefully pulled her up to sit sideways in front of him. She gasped at the pain in her ankle but did not cry out. "Hold on to me," Warren instructed, positioning her so she leaned back against his chest. "It is going to be a long ride." They set off slowly, picking their way out of the canyon area and onto more open terrain. The sun rose higher, warming them, and Warren was grateful for the good weather. Rain would have made the journey miserable. Hannah remained mostly silent for the first hour, focusing on managing her pain. Warren kept one arm around her waist to steady her, hyper-aware of every point where their bodies touched. "Tell me about Kelton," Hannah said eventually. "What kind of town is it?" "Small. Maybe 200 people. Started as a railroad stop and grew from there. We have the basics. General store, saloon, church, doctor's office. Not much else. Most people who live there work for the railroad or raise livestock in the surrounding areas." "Is it your home?" "I live about 5 miles outside of town. A small ranch, just me and my horses mostly. I have 2 hired hands who help with the heavy work." "No family?" Warren hesitated. "Not anymore. My parents died when I was young. Cholera. I was raised by my uncle, but he passed 5 years ago. Never had siblings. No wife or children." "I am sorry," Hannah said softly. "It is hard to be alone in the world, It is, but you learn to manage, make your own family from friends and neighbors. He paused. What will you do if we cannot find your wagon train? I do not know. I suppose I would have to earn enough money to continue to California on my own, or perhaps stay wherever I end up and make a new plan. She sighed. All my belongings are with that wagon train. My clothes, my books, my teaching certificates, everything I own in the world. We will find them, Warren said with more confidence than he felt. Wagon trains move slowly. Even with a day's head start, they cannot have gotten far. They rode on, stopping occasionally to rest Rusty and to give Hannah a chance to stretch and ease her cramped muscles. Each time they stopped, Warren helped her down carefully and then lifted her back up again. By the third stop, the action had become familiar, almost comfortable. Hannah's hands on his shoulders, his hands at her waist, the brief moment of closeness before she was settled in the saddle again. It was early afternoon when they finally saw Kelton in the distance, a small collection of buildings wavering in the heat shimmer rising from the desert. Warren felt Hannah tense in his arms. What if they are not there? She asked quietly. Then we will figure out the next step, one thing at a time. They rode down Kelton's single main street, drawing curious looks from the few people who were out in the midday heat. Warren guided Rusty directly to the doctor's office, a small building near the church. He dismounted and lifted Hannah down, then half-carried her inside. Dr. Morris was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes who had been practicing medicine in Kelton for nearly 15 years. He took one look at Hannah's swollen ankle and gestured to the examination table. "What happened to this young lady?" he asked, already beginning his examination. Warren explained the situation while Dr. Morris worked, carefully probing Hannah's ankle and asking her questions about the pain. Finally, he straightened and nodded. "Badly sprained, but not broken. You are lucky, Miss Turner. With proper rest and care, you should heal completely in a few weeks. I will wrap it properly and give you some laudanum for the pain." "A few weeks?" Hannah's voice rose with distress. "But my wagon train, I have to catch up with them." "You are not traveling anywhere on this ankle for at least a week, possibly 2, Dr. Morris said firmly. "After that, only if absolutely necessary and with great care." Warren saw the panic beginning to build in Hannah's eyes. "It is all right," he said quickly. "We will send word to the wagon train. They might even still be in the area searching for you." "I will ask around town," Dr. Morris offered. "See if anyone has heard about a wagon train looking for a lost passenger. News like that travels fast in these parts." While the doctor finished treating Hannah's ankle, Warren stepped outside to speak with Sheriff Coleman, who had his office just down the street. Coleman was a competent lawman in his 50s who Warren had worked with several times before. "Warren," the sheriff greeted him. "Heard you were tracking those horse thieves. Any luck? Lost them in the canyons west of here, but I found something else." Warren explained about Hannah and her situation. "Have you heard anything about a wagon train searching for a missing passenger?" Coleman shook his head. "Nothing. But I will send word to the stations along the main route. If they are looking for her, we will connect them." He studied Warren's face. "You look tired. When is the last time you slept? Been up all night keeping watch?" "I am fine." "You need rest. And that girl needs a place to stay while her ankle heals. The hotel is full up with railroad workers, but maybe someone in town has a spare room." Warren thought about it. He could not ask any of the families in town to take in a stranger, not when times were hard and resources were limited. The answer came to him suddenly, though it made him slightly uncomfortable. "She can stay at my place. I have a spare room and my housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, can act as chaperone. It is not ideal, but it is better than nothing." Coleman raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? You just met this woman." "I am sure. She needs help and I have the means to provide it. The sheriff nodded slowly. All right. I will make sure everyone knows the situation is proper and above board. The last thing either of you needs is gossip. Warren returned to the doctor's office to find Hannah sitting on the examination table, her ankle now properly wrapped and her face showing the effects of the laudanum. She looked drowsy and a bit confused. I have arranged a place for you to stay while you recover, Warren said gently. My ranch. It is not fancy, but it is comfortable and safe. My housekeeper will be there to help care for you. Hannah blinked at him slowly. Your ranch, but I cannot impose like that. You are not imposing. I am offering. Dr. Morris says you cannot travel and there is nowhere else suitable in town. It makes sense. I do not have any way to pay you. I am not asking for payment. Consider it an extension of the help I started last night in the canyon. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes trying to focus through the haze of the pain medication. Why are you being so kind to me? Warren did not have a good answer to that question, at least not one he was ready to articulate. Because you need help, and I can give it. That is reason enough. Dr. Morris packed up some extra bandages and a small bottle of laudanum for Hannah to take with her. Change the wrapping every few days. Keep the ankle elevated as much as possible, and do not put weight on it. Come back in a week so I can check on the healing. Warren paid the doctor, then carried Hannah out to where Rusty waited. The ride to his ranch was short, just a few miles along a well-worn path. The property appeared gradually, starting with fenced pastures where several horses grazed, then the main house, a modest but well-built structure with a wide porch. Behind it stood a barn and several smaller outbuildings. Mrs. Chen came out onto the porch as they approached, her weathered face showing surprise. She was a Chinese woman in her 60s who had come to America years ago and ended up in Kelton through circumstances Warren had never fully learned. She kept his house, cooked his meals, and treated him with a mixture of exasperation and affection that reminded him of the mother he had barely known. What is this? She asked as Warren dismounted with Hannah still in his arms. He explained quickly, aware of how the situation must look. Mrs. Chen listened without interruption, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Bring her inside, she said finally. Put her in the spare room. I will make tea and prepare something to eat. The poor girl looks half-starved. The spare room was small but clean, with a comfortable bed and a window that looked out over the pastures. Warren laid Hannah down carefully, and she sighed with relief at finally being horizontal again. Mrs. Chen shooed him out and took over, helping Hannah out of her torn and dirty dress and into a clean nightgown that had belonged to Mrs. Chen's daughter, who had grown and moved away years ago. Warren retreated to the main room, suddenly exhausted. He had been awake for nearly 36 hours straight, and the adrenaline that had kept him going was finally fading. He sat heavily in his chair and let his head fall back, his eyes closing. He woke to Mrs. Chen shaking his shoulder. You need to eat and then sleep properly, she said. The girl is resting. I have given her more medicine and some food. She will sleep through the afternoon and probably most of the night. Warren ate the meal Mrs. Chen had prepared, barely tasting it, then made his way to his own room. He removed his boots and gun belt and collapsed onto the bed, asleep within seconds. When he woke, it was dark outside, and for a moment he was disoriented, not sure if he had slept for hours or days. He lit a lamp and checked his pocket watch. Nearly midnight. He had slept for about 8 hours, which meant it was now the early hours of the day after he had brought Hannah to the ranch. He moved quietly through the house, checking on things out of habit. When he passed the spare room, he paused. The door was slightly ajar and he could hear soft sounds from inside, crying. Warren knocked gently. Hannah, are you all right? The crying stopped abruptly. "Yes," came her voice, thick with tears. "I am sorry, I did not mean to wake you." He pushed the door open a bit more. "You did not wake me, may I come in?" "All right." Warren entered, carrying his lamp. Hannah was sitting up in bed, her face wet with tears. She looked very young and very vulnerable in the oversized nightgown, her hair braided loosely over one shoulder. "What is wrong?" he asked, sitting in the chair near the bed. "Everything," she said, then laughed bitterly. "That is not true. Many things are right. I am alive. I am safe. I am being cared for by kind people, but I am also lost and alone and frightened. My wagon train is gone. All my possessions are gone. I have nothing and no one, and I am completely dependent on the charity of a stranger. It is overwhelming." Warren understood that feeling more than she might realize. "You are not alone. I am here, Mrs. Chen is here, and we will help you. Tomorrow, we will start making inquiries about your wagon train. Sheriff Coleman is sending word along the trail. Someone will have information. But what if we cannot find them? What if they think I am dead and just keep going? Then we will figure out what comes next." "You are a teacher," you said. "There is a school in Kelton that could probably use help. Or if you still want to go to California, we will find a safe way to get you there once you are healed." Hannah wiped at her tears. "Why are you doing all this? You do not owe me anything." Warren considered the question. It was the second time she had asked, and he still did not have a fully formed answer. But sitting there in the lamplight, looking at her tear-streaked face, he knew part of the truth. "Maybe I am doing it because I know what it is like to be lost and alone," he said slowly. "After my parents died, I was taken in by my uncle, but it was not the same as having a real family. He was kind, but distant. I spent a lot of my childhood feeling like I did not belong anywhere. When I got older and came out here to make my own way, I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to help someone who was lost, I would. So maybe I am doing this as much for that scared kid I used to be as for you." Hannah reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were small and warm in his. "Thank you for telling me that, and thank you for everything else. I will find a way to repay your kindness." "You do not need to repay anything. Just focus on healing." He stayed with her a while longer, talking quietly about inconsequential things until she began to yawn. When he finally left her to sleep, Warren found himself reluctant to go, wanting to stay in her presence a little longer. That realization troubled him. He barely knew this woman. It was too soon to feel anything beyond basic compassion. But as he lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, he could not deny that something was growing in his chest. An awareness of Hannah Turner that went beyond the simple desire to help someone in need. He kept remembering the way she had looked at him in the canyon, the trust in her eyes when she let him carry her, the warmth of her hand in his. Warren had not allowed himself to feel much of anything for anyone in a very long time. After his uncle died, he had focused entirely on building his ranch and making a life for himself. There had been women, a few brief relationships that had never gone anywhere because he had not let them. He told himself he was content with his solitary life. But now, with Hannah sleeping in his spare room, he wondered if contentment was the same as happiness. The next morning, Warren was up at dawn, following his usual routine. He fed the horses, checked on the few cattle he kept, and did various small repairs around the property. Mrs. Chen arrived as the sun was fully up, letting herself in and immediately starting breakfast. She had her own small house on the edge of his property, a benefit of her employment. "The girl is awake," Mrs. Chen reported as she mixed batter for pancakes. "I helped her wash and dress. She is sitting by the window in her room." "How does she seem?" "Sad, worried, but trying to be brave." Mrs. Chen gave him a knowing look. "She is a good girl. Pretty too." Mrs. Chen, Warren said warningly. "I am just observing facts." The older woman cracked eggs into a pan. "When will you go to town to ask about her wagon train?" "This morning. I will ride in after breakfast and speak with the sheriff." "Good. The sooner she has answers, the better." Warren helped carry breakfast to Hannah's room. She was indeed sitting by the window, her injured ankle propped on a stool, wearing another of Mrs. Chen's daughter's old dresses. This one was a simple green cotton that actually fit her reasonably well. Her hair was neatly braided, and her face looked rested despite the tears from the night before. "Good morning," she greeted him with a tentative smile. "I hope I did not worry you last night with my crying." "Not at all. You are entitled to your feelings." He set the tray of food on a small table beside her. "I am riding into town this morning to check with the sheriff. Hopefully, he has news." They ate together, and Warren found himself enjoying the conversation more than he expected. Hannah told him about growing up in Independence, about her parents and the little school where she had taught. She had a gift for description that made him see the places and people she described. In turn, he told her about his horses, the land, the simple satisfaction of building something with his own hands. When the meal was finished, Warren prepared to leave for town. Hannah watched him strap on his gun belt with an expression he could not quite read. "Be careful," she said as he turned to go. "It is just a ride to town and back. Still, please be careful." The genuine concern in her voice warmed him. "I will." The ride to Kelton took about 45 minutes. Warren went directly to the sheriff's office, where he found Coleman sorting through a stack of papers. "I was about to send word to you," the sheriff said immediately. "I have information about that wagon train." Warren felt his pulse quicken. "What did you learn?" "The wagon train is still in the area, camped about 20 miles north of here. They have been searching for Miss Turner but focused their efforts in the wrong direction. I sent a rider with a message last night. They should receive it this morning, and I expect they will send someone here within the next day or two." Relief washed over Warren. "That is good news. Thank you, Sheriff." "There is more." Coleman's expression turned serious. "The wagon master, Callahan, is apparently furious about the delay. Some of the families are getting anxious about making it over the mountains before the weather turns. There is talk that they might not wait much longer, even if Miss Turner is found." Warren frowned. "They would leave her behind." "I am just telling you what I heard." Wagon trains operate on tight schedules, especially this late in the season. Callahan has to think about the safety of everyone, not just one person. She was injured trying to find her way back to them. It was not her fault she got lost. "I know. I am not saying it is right, just that it is the reality." Coleman studied Warren's face. "You have gotten attached to her." "I have not. I just do not like the idea of her being abandoned." "Right." The sheriff's tone suggested he did not believe that at all. "Well, let us wait and see what happens. Maybe Callahan will be more reasonable than the rumors suggest." Warren did some shopping at the general store, picking up a few items that Mrs. Chen had requested, and adding some things he thought Hannah might need. A new brush for her hair, some ribbon, a book of poetry he thought she might enjoy. The storekeeper, a gossipy woman named Mrs. Patterson, peppered him with questions about his houseguest that he deflected as politely as possible. On the ride back to the ranch, Warren thought about what the sheriff had said. The wagon train might not wait for Hannah. If that happened, what would she do? The original plan had been to reconnect her with her people and send her on her way. But if that plan fell through, the alternatives were limited. She could stay in Kelton and try to find work, though opportunities were scarce. She could wait and try to join another wagon train heading west next spring. Or, Warren did not let himself finish that thought. It was too soon, too complicated, too everything. When he arrived back at the ranch, he found Hannah on the front porch, her foot still elevated, reading a worn Bible that Mrs. Chen must have lent her. She looked up as he dismounted, her face eager for news. "The sheriff heard from your wagon train," Warren said, climbing the porch steps. "They are camped about 20 miles north of here. They received word that you have been found and are safe. Someone should be coming within the next day or two." Hannah's expression was complex, a mixture of relief and something else. Disappointment. "That is wonderful news," she said, but her tone lacked enthusiasm. "You do not sound happy about it." She closed the Bible and set it aside. "I am relieved to know they are still looking for me, still in the area, but I am also—" She trailed off, seeming unsure how to continue. "Also what?" "Also confused about how I feel about leaving." She met his eyes directly. "I have been here less than 2 days, but I already feel more at home than I did during months on that wagon train. You and Mrs. Chen have been so kind, and this place feels peaceful. Safe. The wagon train always felt like motion without purpose, just moving for the sake of moving." "Does that make sense?" It made more sense than Warren wanted to admit. "The wagon train is taking you toward the future you planned. California, teaching, a new life. That is important." "Is it? Or is it just the future I thought I should want because I could not think of any better options?" Hannah shook her head. "I am sorry. I should not burden you with my uncertainties. You have already done so much." Warren sat down in the chair next to hers. "You are not a burden, Hannah, and uncertainty is natural, especially after what you have been through. You do not have to have everything figured out right now." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the horses in the pasture. Warren was acutely aware of her presence beside him, the way the afternoon light caught in her hair, the small movements of her hands as she fidgeted with the ribbon on the Bible. "Tell me about your horses," Hannah said eventually. "What are their names?" Warren relaxed into the safer topic, pointing out each horse and sharing their individual personalities and quirks. He told her about the breeding program he was slowly developing, his hope to raise quality stock that would be in demand throughout the territory. Hannah listened with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions that showed she was really paying attention. The afternoon passed pleasantly. Mrs. Chen brought them lunch and made approving noises about how well Hannah looked. Later, Warren helped Hannah practice walking with a makeshift crutch he had fashioned from a sturdy branch. She was determined to regain some mobility, even if it meant working through pain. He admired her resilience, the way she refused to be defeated by her circumstances. As evening approached, Warren was acutely aware that their time together might be limited. In a day or two, someone from the wagon train would arrive, and Hannah would leave. The thought created an uncomfortable tightness in his chest that he tried to ignore. They ate dinner together at the small table in the kitchen, with Mrs. Chen joining them. The older woman told stories about her youth in China and her journey to America, tales that were by turns funny and heartbreaking. Hannah was a good audience, laughing at the right moments and expressing sympathy at the sad parts. After dinner, Warren and Hannah sat on the porch again, watching the sun set over the distant mountains. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink, and the air cooled rapidly as darkness approached. "I want to tell you something," Hannah said suddenly. "About that night in the canyon." Warren waited, not pushing. "When I was sitting there in the absolute darkness before I heard you coming, I was thinking about giving up. Not in a dramatic way, just accepting that I was going to die there alone. And I felt this overwhelming sadness, not because I was dying, but because I realized I had not really lived. I had been moving through life letting things happen to me instead of making choices, following the path of least resistance. and I promised myself that if I survived, I would be different, braver, more intentional about what I wanted. She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the last light of the sunset. And then I saw your candle coming toward me in the darkness, and it felt like a sign, like the universe was giving me another chance and I should not waste it. Warren felt the weight of her words, the significance she was placing on their meeting. "What are you saying, Hannah?" "I am saying that I do not want to go to California just because it was the plan I made months ago when I was a different person in a different situation. I want to make a new choice based on who I am now and what I have learned about myself." "What have you learned?" "That I am stronger than I thought, that kindness matters more than grand plans, that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places." She paused. "That maybe home is not a place you travel to, but something you recognize when you find it." Warren's heart was pounding. "Hannah, you barely know me. You barely know this place. You are talking about appending your entire life based on a few days." "I know. It sounds crazy when you say it like that. But does it feel crazy?" He wanted to say yes, that it was completely irrational that she needed to stick with her original plan. But he could not make himself say those words because they would be lies. It did not feel crazy. It felt right in a way that very little in his life had ever felt right. "No," he admitted, "it does not feel crazy." Hannah reached for his hand and he took it, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I am not saying I know exactly what I want. But I know that when I think about leaving here, about getting on that wagon train and continuing west, I feel sad. And when I think about staying, at least for a while, I feel hopeful. That has to mean something." Before Warren could respond, they heard the sound of approaching horses. Multiple riders coming fast. Warren stood immediately, his hand moving to his gun out of instinct. Hannah looked frightened. "Stay here," Warren said, then stepped off the porch to meet whoever was coming. 3 riders emerged from the darkness, pulling their horses to a stop in front of the house. The lead rider was a large man with a thick beard and an expression of barely controlled anger. The other 2 were younger, possibly his sons based on the family resemblance. "You Warren Whitfield?" the bearded man demanded. "I am. Who are you?" "Thomas Callahan. I am the wagon master for the train that lost a passenger. I am here for Hannah Turner." Warren felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "You made good time. The sheriff only sent word last night." "We were already headed in this direction. One of my scouts picked up a trail that we thought might be hers. When we got the message about her being here, we came straight away." Callahan's eyes moved past Warren to where Hannah sat on the porch. "Miss Turner, glad to see you alive." Hannah had gone pale. "Mr. Callahan, thank you for coming. We need to leave. Now. The train is already a day behind schedule because of this situation and we cannot afford any more delays." "Now," Warren stepped forward, "it is dark and Miss Turner has a badly injured ankle. She cannot ride tonight. She will ride in the wagon with me. We have a doctor with the train who can see to her ankle." Callahan's tone brooked no argument. "Miss Turner, gather your things. We leave in 5 minutes." "You cannot be serious," Warren said, his anger rising. "She needs rest, proper medical care. Jostle that ankle around in a wagon all night and you will make the injury worse. That is not your concern. Miss Turner is part of my wagon train under my protection, and I am responsible for getting her and everyone else safely to California. We have lost too much time already." Hannah stood up, wobbling on her injured ankle. "Mr. Callahan, I appreciate your coming for me, but Mr. Whitfield is right. I cannot travel tonight. Perhaps if we wait until morning." "We are not waiting." Callahan dismounted and started toward the porch. "I am sorry, Miss Turner, but I have to think about the good of the many. We have children on that train who need to get over the mountains before the snows come. Your convenience cannot take precedence over their safety. Warren moved to block Callahan's path. You will not force her to go anywhere. She is an adult and can make her own decisions. She made her decision when she paid to join my wagon train and signed on for the journey to California. That decision comes with obligations. Callahan squared his shoulders. Now step aside, Mr. Whitfield, before this gets ugly. Warren's hand hovered near his gun. Behind him, he heard Hannah gasp. The situation was escalating quickly, turning into exactly the kind of confrontation he wanted to avoid. But he also could not stand by and watch Hannah be essentially kidnapped, forced to travel when she was injured and unwilling. "What is really going on here, Callahan?" Warren asked, keeping his voice level. "Is this about schedule, or is there something else?" Callahan's jaw worked. "Miss Turner owes me money. She paid half her passage up front with the agreement to pay the rest when we reached California. If she does not complete the journey, I am out that money." "How much?" Warren asked immediately. $50. It was a significant sum, but not impossible. "I will pay it, right now, and then Miss Turner will be free of her obligation to you." Hannah made a protesting sound. "Warren, no, that is too much. I cannot let you. How much is your freedom worth?" he asked, not taking his eyes off Callahan. "How much is the chance to make your own choice worth?" Callahan looked between them, clearly assessing the situation. $60, he said. 50 for the passage and 10 for the trouble of coming here. It was extortion, plain and simple, but Warren did not care. "Done. Wait here." He went into the house and retrieved the money from the metal box where he kept his savings. It hurt to part with that much cash, but not as much as watching Hannah be forced to leave would hurt. He counted out $60 and returned to the porch, handing the money to Callahan. "Here. She is bought out of her contract. Now leave." Callahan counted the money slowly, then pocketed it. "Fine. But Miss Turner, be aware that you are giving up your belongings that are still with the train. I am not hauling them back here." "What belongings does she have?" Warren asked. "A trunk and a bag, clothes, books, personal items. I will give you another $10 for her trunk and bag. You can leave them here tonight." Callahan's eyes narrowed, sensing opportunity. 20. Warren's temper flared, but he reined it in. 15. And that is my final offer. Otherwise, I let Miss Turner decide if she wants to press charges for harassment and attempted coercion." The wagon master calculated his options and clearly decided not to push his luck. 15. But we are not riding all the way back to camp tonight to get her things. We will bring them tomorrow. Make sure you do." Warren paid the additional money and Callahan pocketed it with the rest. "You are making a mistake, Miss Turner," he said to Hannah. "California offers opportunities that a place like this never will." "Maybe," Hannah replied, "but at least here I get to choose my own path." Callahan and his companions mounted up and rode off into the darkness. Warren stood watching until they were out of sight, his heart still pounding with residual anger and adrenaline. When he finally turned back to the porch, Hannah was staring at him with tears streaming down her face. "You just spent $80 on me," she said, her voice shaking. "Warren, that is a fortune. It was worth it." He climbed the steps to stand beside her. "You deserve the chance to make your own decision, free from pressure or obligation. But what if I make the wrong decision? What if I am being foolish and impulsive? Then you will be foolish and impulsive on your own terms, not someone else's." He gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "Hannah, I cannot tell you what to do, but I can tell you that you are welcome here for as long as you want to stay. No obligations, no expectations, just the chance to figure out what you really want." She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. Warren held her, feeling the tension drain from her body as she cried. "Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion, and Warren gestured that everything was all right. The older woman nodded and disappeared back inside, giving them privacy. When Hannah finally pulled back, she looked exhausted but also relieved. "I need to sit down. My ankle is throbbing." Warren helped her back to her chair and went to get her medicine. When he returned, Hannah took the laudanum gratefully and leaned back, closing her eyes. "Tomorrow, I am going to wake up and probably feel terrible that you spent so much money on me," she said. "And I will tell you again that it was worth it. You are a very stubborn man, Warren Whitfield, so I have been told." She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Thank you for standing up to Callahan, for giving me a choice for everything. You are welcome." They sat together in the darkness, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Warren felt a sense of peace settle over him, a feeling that something significant had shifted. Hannah was staying, at least for now. He had no idea what that would mean for either of them, but he knew he wanted to find out. The next few days fell into a comfortable pattern. Warren worked around the ranch during the day while Hannah rested and slowly began to regain her mobility. Mrs. Chen fussed over her patient, making sure Hannah ate well and changed her bandages regularly. In the evenings, Warren and Hannah would sit together, talking about everything and nothing. Callahan kept his word and sent Hannah's trunk and bag with a surly young man who barely spoke, just dropped the items and left immediately. Hannah went through her belongings with a mixture of happiness at recovering her things and melancholy at seeing the remnants of her old life. "These dresses do not even fit right," she said, holding up one of her traveling outfits. "I lost weight during the journey. Everything is too loose now." "Mrs. Chen is handy with a needle," Warren offered. "She could take them in for you." "That is kind, but I think I would rather buy new fabric and make something that actually suits this place. Those dresses were for California, for a life I am not going to live. It seems appropriate to start fresh." Warren liked the symbolism of that, the deliberate choice to embrace a new beginning. As the week progressed, Hannah's ankle healed remarkably well. By the time they returned to Dr. Morris for the follow-up examination, she was walking with only a slight limp. The doctor pronounced her recovery excellent and said she could resume normal activities as long as she did not overdo it. With renewed mobility came new possibilities. Hannah began helping Mrs. Chen around the house, insisting that she needed to be useful. She also started spending more time outside, getting to know the horses and learning about the ranch. Warren taught her to ride on his gentlest mare, and though she was nervous at first, she quickly developed confidence in the saddle. They were careful around each other in some ways, both aware of the growing connection between them but uncertain how to acknowledge it. Hannah was staying in Warren's house, dependent on his charity, which created an awkward power dynamic. Warren did not want to take advantage of the situation or make Hannah feel pressured. So they danced around the obvious attraction, keeping conversations friendly but not too intimate, maintaining physical distance even when they both wanted to be closer. It was Mrs. Chen who finally forced the issue. About 2 weeks after Hannah's arrival, the older woman cornered Warren in the barn while he was feeding the horses. "You are in love with her," Mrs. Chen said without preamble. Warren nearly dropped the bucket of oats he was holding. "What? No. I mean, I care about her, but you are in love with her," Mrs. Chen repeated firmly. "And she is in love with you. Anyone with eyes can see it. So why are you both pretending otherwise? It is complicated. She is my guest, under my protection. I do not want her to feel obligated. Mrs. Chen laughed. "That girl looks at you like you hung the moon. There is no obligation in those eyes, only affection, and you look at her the same way when you think no one is watching." Warren set the bucket down and leaned against the stall door. What if I am wrong? What if this is just gratitude on her part, or confusion because of the traumatic situation? What if I speak up and ruin everything? What if you do not speak up and lose the chance at happiness? Life is short and uncertain, Warren. I know you have spent many years alone protecting yourself from hurt, but this woman, she is worth the risk. Trust an old woman who knows about these things. Warren wanted to argue, but he could not. Mrs. Chen was right. He was in love with Hannah Turner. He had probably been falling in love with her since that first night in the canyon when she had looked at him with such trust and gratitude, and every day since then had only deepened his feelings. What should I do? He asked. Tell her the truth. Give her the choice to say yes or no. But give her the choice. That evening, Warren asked Hannah to take a walk with him. The weather was beautiful, cool but not cold, with a sky full of stars. They walked slowly to accommodate her still healing ankle, following a path that led to a small hill overlooking the ranch. "This is lovely," Hannah said when they reached the top. The ranch buildings were visible below, warm light glowing from the windows. Beyond that, the landscape stretched dark and vast. "I can see why you love it here." "I built this place from nothing," Warren said. "Worked for years, saved every penny, bought the land and put up the buildings with my own hands. It always felt like enough, but lately it has started to feel empty." Hannah glanced at him. "Why do you think that is?" "Because I have realized what was missing, not something, someone." He took a breath, gathering his courage. "You, Hannah, you are what is missing." She turned to face him fully, her expression careful. "Warren, let me finish, please. I know this is fast. I know we have only known each other a few weeks. But I also know how I feel, and pretending otherwise is making me miserable. I am in love with you. I think I started falling in love with you that first night when I gave you my last candle, and you looked at me like I was a hero instead of just a man doing what anyone should do. And every day since then has just made me more certain." Hannah's eyes were glistening with tears. "You are in love with me. Yes, completely, irrevocably, and if you do not feel the same way, I will accept that. You can stay here as long as you need to figure out your next steps. No pressure, no expectations. But I had to tell you because Mrs. Chen is right. Life is too short to waste chances at happiness. Mrs. Chen knows. Mrs. Chen knows everything. She is like a force of nature that way." Hannah laughed, a sound that was half sob. "I love you too. I have been trying not to because it seemed too fast, too impossible, but I cannot help it. I love you, Warren Whitfield. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you gave me the choice to shape my own life. I love this ranch and this place and the future I can imagine building here, with you." Warren felt like he might burst with joy. "You mean it?" "I mean it." He kissed her then, gently at first and then with more passion as she responded. It was everything a first kiss should be, sweet and exciting and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "We should probably talk about practical things," Hannah said, though she made no move to step away from him. "Like what this means, what happens next." "Marry me," Warren said. Hannah blinked. "What? Marry me? I know it is fast. I know most people would say we should wait and court properly. But I am 31 years old and I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you and I want to build a life with you. So marry me, Hannah Turner. Let us stop worrying about what is proper or expected and just choose happiness." "Yes," Hannah said immediately. "Yes, I will marry you." They kissed again, sealing the promise, and Warren felt like the luckiest man alive. He had given his last candle to a woman lost in darkness, and her light had led him to something greater than he ever could have imagined. Love, partnership, a future that shone bright with possibility. They returned to the house hand in hand, and Warren immediately told Mrs. Chen the news. The older woman pretended to be surprised but fooled no one. She hugged them both and declared that she would make the wedding feast, and it would be magnificent. The wedding took place a month later, in the small church in Kelton. Sheriff Coleman stood up as Warren's best man, and Mrs. Chen stood with Hannah. Most of the town turned out for the ceremony, curious about the mysterious woman who had captured the confirmed bachelor Warren Whitfield. The ceremony was simple but beautiful, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Warren kissed his bride with enthusiasm that made the congregation laugh and cheer. They held the reception at the ranch, with tables set up outside and food enough to feed half the county. People danced and drank and celebrated late into the night. Hannah glowed with happiness, moving through the crowd with confidence that showed how far she had come from the frightened woman lost in the canyon. When the last guest had finally left and they were alone, Warren carried Hannah over the threshold of the house that was now truly their home. She laughed at the romantic gesture, but her eyes were soft with love. "Happy?" Warren asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Hannah replied. Their first year of marriage was filled with work and joy in equal measure. Hannah took a position teaching at the school in Kelton, riding into town 3 days a week on her own horse. She was a natural teacher, beloved by her students and respected by their parents. Warren continued to build his horse breeding program, gaining a reputation for quality stock that brought buyers from throughout the territory. They worked together to improve the ranch, adding a new barn and expanding the house to include a proper library where Hannah could keep her growing collection of books. In the evenings, they would sit together reading or talking, comfortable in the companionship they had built. The physical side of their marriage was equally fulfilling. Warren had been with women before, but never with someone he loved so deeply. Making love to Hannah was a revelation, an intimacy that transcended the physical and touched something spiritual. She was passionate and uninhibited, unafraid to express what she wanted, and Warren delighted in learning every way to bring her pleasure. In the spring of 1885, Hannah discovered she was pregnant. The news filled them both with excitement and terror in equal measure. They had talked about children, wanted children, but the reality was overwhelming. "What if I am not a good mother?" Hannah worried, one hand pressed to her still flat stomach. "You will be an excellent mother," Warren assured her. "You are patient and kind and loving. Our child will be lucky to have you." "Our child," Hannah repeated, testing the words. "It sounds so real when you say it like that." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Hannah suffered from terrible nausea in the early months. Warren hovered, worried and protective, until Hannah finally told him to stop treating her like she was made of glass. She continued teaching until she was 7 months along, then reluctantly took leave to prepare for the birth. Their son was born on a cold December night, after a labor that terrified Warren and exhausted Hannah. Dr. Morris attended the birth, calm and competent, talking Hannah through the process. When the baby finally emerged, squalling and perfect, Warren cried for the second time in his adult life. The first had been their wedding day. They named him Jacob Thomas Whitfield, after Warren's father and Hannah's father. He was a healthy baby with a powerful set of lungs and his mother's dark eyes. Warren fell in love immediately, this tiny human who was part him and part Hannah, a living symbol of their love. Watching Hannah with their son, Warren was struck by how much his life had changed. 3 years ago, he had been alone, content, but not truly happy. Now he had a wife he adored and a son who had transformed everything. The ranch felt complete in a way it never had before, filled with laughter and love and the chaotic joy of family life. Jacob was 6 months old when Hannah approached Warren with an idea. "What would you think about adopting?" she asked, Warren looked up from the bridle he was repairing. Adopting. There are so many children who need homes. Orphans from the wagon trains, children whose parents died or could not care for them. I keep thinking about how lucky Jacob is to have two parents who love him, and how many children do not have that. We have room, we have resources. Why not share what we have? Warren considered it. His own childhood had been shaped by loss and the kindness of his uncle who took him in. The idea of providing a home for a child who needed one appealed to him deeply. "I think that is a wonderful idea," he said. They began the process of adoption, working with the territorial authorities and local churches. 6 months later, they brought home a 4-year-old girl named Lily. She had been orphaned when her parents died of fever, and she was painfully shy, traumatized by loss and uncertainty. Hannah worked with her patiently, never pushing, always offering love and stability. Slowly, Lily began to blossom. 2 years after Lily, they adopted a 7-year-old boy named Sam who had been abandoned at a railroad station. He was angry and defensive, testing every boundary, but Warren saw past the difficult behavior to the frightened child underneath. With time, consistency, and love, Sam began to trust that this family would not abandon him. The Whitfield Ranch became known as a place of refuge and second chances. The house expanded to accommodate their growing family. Warren built additional bedrooms and a larger kitchen. Mrs. Chen, now in her 70s but still energetic, helped manage the household and loved the children like they were her own grandchildren. Jacob grew into a serious boy who loved books like his mother and had his father's quiet strength. Lily became confident and outgoing, with a gift for music that delighted everyone. Sam developed into a talented horseman, working alongside Warren and showing a natural aptitude for the animals. Hannah continued teaching, though she reduced her hours to balance work and family. She became known throughout the region as an advocate for education and for children who needed help. The library in their home became a gathering place where students from the school would come to borrow books and get extra help with their studies. Warren's horse breeding program flourished, bringing in steady income that allowed them to be comfortable and generous. He became a respected member of the community, serving on the town council and helping to resolve disputes. People knew that Warren Whitfield was a fair man, slow to anger but fierce in protecting what mattered to him. As the years passed, Warren and Hannah's love deepened into something both passionate and comfortable. They still made each other laugh, still found excuses to steal kisses when the children were not watching, still talked for hours about their hopes and dreams. They fought occasionally, like any couple, but they always worked through it with honesty and respect. In 1893, on their 10th wedding anniversary, Warren gave Hannah a beautiful locket. Inside were tiny photographs of their 3 children and an inscription that read, "You were my light in the darkness." Hannah cried when she read it, remembering that night in the canyon that had brought them together. "I would go through it all again," she said, touching the locket. "Every scary moment, every uncertainty. It all led to this beautiful life we have built. I would go into that canyon 1,000 times if it meant finding you," Warren replied. They renewed their vows that day in a simple ceremony on the hill where Warren had first told Hannah he loved her. Their children stood with them, along with Mrs. Chen and many friends from town. It was not necessary, legally or religiously, but it felt important to mark the milestone, to recommit to each other in front of the people they loved. More children joined their family over the years. Some stayed permanently, adopted fully into the family. Others stayed for shorter periods, healing from trauma or waiting for other family members to get back on their feet. The Whitfield home became a symbol of hope in the community, proof that love and commitment could overcome almost any obstacle. Jacob was 17 when he told his parents he wanted to be a lawyer. "I want to help people like you both have," he said, "but with laws and courts, making sure everyone gets treated fairly." Warren and Hannah supported his dream, helping him apply to schools back east. It was hard to let their eldest leave, but they knew it was necessary. Sam, at 15, had declared his intention to stay on the ranch and help Warren build the business even bigger. Lily, at 13, was torn between her love of music and her desire to teach like her mother. "You do not have to decide now," Hannah told her. "You have time to explore all your interests." The turn of the century brought changes to the Utah Territory. Statehood had come in 1896, bringing new opportunities and new challenges. Kelton continued to grow, becoming a proper town with paved streets and electric lights. Warren and Hannah's ranch remained slightly outside the rapid modernization, a place where older values of hard work and community still held sway. In 1905, Warren and Hannah celebrated their 21st wedding anniversary. They were in their 50s now, graying and showing the marks of 2 decades of hard work and full lives. But they were still deeply in love, still partners in every sense of the word. "You ever regret it?" Warren asked as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. "Giving up California, staying here," Hannah took his hand, their fingers interlacing in the automatic way of long habit. "Not for a single second. California was a destination, but this became home. You became home. Everything else grew from that." "I gave you a candle," Warren said with a smile, "and somehow that turned into all of this. You gave me more than a candle. You gave me a choice. You gave me the freedom to decide my own path and the courage to choose love over fear." That is what made all the difference. Their children had grown and were building their own lives, but they all stayed connected to the ranch and to each other. Jacob did become a lawyer, practicing in Salt Lake City, but returning home frequently. He married a woman named Elizabeth who was a doctor, and they gave Warren and Hannah their first grandchildren. Sam took over more of the daily operations of the ranch, proving to be a natural businessman with innovative ideas. He married a local woman named Clara, and they built a house on the property so they could stay close. Lily became a music teacher, opening a school in Kelton where she taught piano and voice. She married late, at 30, to a kind man named Robert who supported her career. The other children they had fostered over the years also stayed in touch. Some sent letters from far-away places, updating the Whitfields on their lives and thanking them for the stability and love they had provided during difficult times. Others settled nearby, becoming part of the extended community that revolved around the ranch. Mrs. Chen lived to be 87, sharp and opinionated to the very end. She died peacefully in her sleep in 1908, and Warren and Hannah mourned her deeply. She had been family in every way that mattered, a constant presence in their lives and a source of wisdom and strength. They buried her on the ranch, under a cottonwood tree she had loved, with a headstone that read, "Beloved friend and grandmother to many." As Warren and Hannah entered their 60s, they gradually stepped back from the day-to-day work of the ranch, turning more responsibility over to Sam and his growing family. They had earned their rest, though neither of them was content to be fully idle. Warren still worked with the horses most days, and Hannah continued to tutor students who needed extra help. They traveled some, taking the train to visit Jacob and his family in Salt Lake City, or going to San Francisco to see the ocean that Hannah had once planned to live near. They always returned to the ranch with relief, happy to be back in the place they had built together. In 1915, Warren and Hannah celebrated their 31st wedding anniversary. They were 71 and 67 respectively, slowed by age but still healthy and engaged with life. Their family had grown to include 5 grandchildren with another on the way. The ranch was prosperous and well managed. The school library that Hannah had helped establish was one of the best in the state. Their legacy was secure, built on a foundation of love and choice and the simple act of one man giving his last candle to a woman lost in darkness. On a warm evening in early autumn, they sat together on the porch as they had done thousands of times before. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Warren held Hannah's hand, his thumb moving gently over her knuckles. "I have been thinking," Hannah said, "about that night in the canyon, about how scared I was and how your light appeared like a miracle. I have thought about it too. How different my life would be if I had not heard you call for help, if I had not chosen to go into that canyon." "Do you believe in fate?" Hannah asked. "That we were meant to find each other?" Warren considered the question. "I believe in choice. I believe I chose to help you, and you chose to trust me, and we both chose to love each other. But I also believe that sometimes the universe gives you opportunities, and it is up to you whether to take them. Maybe that is what fate really is. Not a predetermined path, but a series of moments where you can choose to be open to possibility." Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder. "I like that. It gives credit to both the magic and the work." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. Their children and grandchildren were scattered across the property, living their own lives but still connected to this place and to the love that had started it all. The ranch would continue long after Warren and Hannah were gone, a testament to what they had built together. But for now, they were content to sit and watch the darkness fall, knowing that they had been each other's light through all the years. The candle Warren had given Hannah in that canyon had long since burned away, but the flame they had kindled together still burned bright, warming everyone it touched. As the last light faded from the sky, Warren kissed his wife's forehead gently. "I love you, Hannah Whitfield." "I love you too, Warren, always and forever." The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and infinite, bearing witness to the love story that had begun with a simple act of kindness and grown into something truly greater. A woman lost in darkness had found her way home. A lonely man had discovered that the greatest adventure was not in being alone, but in choosing to share his life with someone else. And together, they had created light enough to guide not just themselves, but generations to come. The story of Warren and Hannah Whitfield would be told and retold in their family for generations. The details would shift and change with each telling, but the core would remain the same. Love born from kindness, choice given freely and accepted with courage. A life built on the foundation of mutual respect and deep affection. And through it all, the image of a single candle flame in the darkness, leading to something greater than either of them could have imagined. In the end, that is what their story had always been about. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments, though there had been some of those, but rather the daily choice to love, to build, to create something meaningful together. Warren gave Hannah his last candle, yes, but what Hannah gave Warren in return was immeasurable: purpose, joy, family. A reason to transform his comfortable solitude into something richer and more complex. Together, they created light enough to last lifetimes. As the years continued to pass and Warren and Hannah grew older, they never lost sight of what made their love special. It was not that they were perfect people or that their life together was without challenges. It was that they chose each other, every single day through good times and bad. That choice, made and remade constantly, was the real miracle. When Warren passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 79, Hannah grieved deeply, but also felt gratitude for the full life they had shared. She lived another 6 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren who carried forward the values she and Warren had instilled. She died in her own bed in the house they had built together, holding the locket Warren had given her on their 10th anniversary. They were buried side by side on the ranch, under the vast Utah sky they had both loved. The headstone was simple, bearing their names and dates in a single line. Their light led to something greater, and it had. The Whitfield family continued to thrive, generation after generation, each carrying forward the legacy of love and choice and kindness. The ranch remained in the family, a gathering place where everyone knew they belonged. The story of how it all began with a cowboy and his last candle, a woman lost in darkness, and the love that grew from that moment of connection became the foundation myth of the family. A reminder that the greatest things in life often begin with a simple choice to help someone in need, because in the end, that was the truth at the heart of Warren and Hannah's story. Love is a choice. Connection is a choice. Kindness is a choice. And when you make those choices with an open heart, willing to take risks and embrace possibility, you create light enough to last forever. Light enough to guide not just yourself, but everyone who comes after. Light enough to transform darkness into hope, loneliness into love, and a single moment of kindness into something truly, magnificently greater.